Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. I'm here with my guest, Melissa Steginus, the author of Everyday Mindfulness. And we talk about these 108 simple practices that just help you to pay attention to yourself and create a greater sense of harmony and synergy within. And I asked her for before the break because her motto is that time and energy are our greatest resources. What do you suggest to people that right off the bat say, sorry for that, but I have neither time nor energy? And I think there are plenty of us out there that would exactly sing that song. So which of those 108 practices would be good to get started with if you don't feel like you have the time and energy to do anything?
Yeah, this is a very real question and a very real feeling for everyone, right? At some point in your day, your week, your year, your life, we feel we get to a place where it's like there's so much going on and you get caught up in all the roles and responsibilities, and it feels like I've got no time for anything else, certainly not myself, and no time, no energy. I don't have the energy to try to even figure out where my time or my energy is going. And I would say take stock in those moments as best you can. Is I mean, when we this is kind of the reality check. When you're at a place where you feel like you've got no time and no energy, what we usually default to is what you've talked about earlier, is those distractions, right? I've got no time nor energy, but I'm watching Netflix and I'm scrolling through my phone because mentally I just need to like check out. And I've been there too, right? I challenge myself in those moments and have actually, I don't know, maybe I sound totally radical to people, but I've gotten rid of, every streaming platform. I've gotten rid of social media, on my phone at least. And I would say schedule time in your day, in your week, to kind of zone out, but not for 3 hours every day, because at the end of your zoning out, of your watching Netflix, of your scrolling through whatever, it's not often that you actually feel better after those things. You don't feel like you have more time. You don't feel like you have more energy. Often you feel more stressed, more anxious. You don't feel enough because you're scrolling through the highlights of other people's lives. And yet here you are already not feeling good. And now perhaps feeling even worse because now you've bombarded your mind with all the things that you should, quote unquote, to do because you see what everyone else is posting. So I would say that is my first and probably least popular suggestion when taking stock of where your time and energy are going, would be pay attention to what you're doing in those moments where you're feeling low. Schedule like an hour to regenerate yourself or to just kind of tune out. And then when that hour comes, pick a simple practice to like flip a switch in your mind. And that's why practice number 1 of the book is take 5 deep breaths, because it sounds very simple, and it's simple, and it's also simple to implement. But at the end of that hour of Netflix, you're taking 5 deep breaths, you're checking in with yourself mentally, emotionally, physically. You will feel like, okay, maybe now it's time to get up and do the dishes. You're just creating a tiny pocket of time in your day where you've just checked in with yourself. And
Mhm.
that is the catalyst for whatever the next step is, right? Whether it's doing the dishes, whether it's doing something productive, whether it's trying out meditation or spending some time playing with your kids, right? It's just a 5 second or 1 minute block of time so that you are coming back to yourself and then getting the wheel turning for the next step.
It always surprises me when I hear people talk about how it's not necessarily a matter of just checking out. It's also a matter of wanting to not be really connected with himself. It's almost like, I don't really like myself that much, so I don't want to listen to the naysayer inside of my head, and I don't want to feel my body that feels, too much or too little or whatever. It's this avoidance of self that I think makes us often just go into the streaming land or social media world. And so I'm wondering, do you feel like your book helps people to have a kinder perspective on themselves, to really befriend themselves more rather than fight
Mhm.
themselves or avoid themselves all the time?
Yeah, that's such a huge one. There's a great quote about the necessity to just sit and spend time. Everyone kind of needs to be in a room with themselves. And yet, that's like the last thing that so many of us want to do, because we go about our day kind of treating ourselves like this machine, being hard on ourselves, saying, go, 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 be productive. Your status is who you are. And then when we have some leisure time, we A, don't know who we are, or B, don't necessarily like that person, because we've trained ourselves to have quite a harsh self-talk regime. And so, in short, yes, absolutely. And that is both from experience in my own my own life, right? Being someone who has strong drive, who has tended in the past to work herself pretty hard to the point of burnout, I've recognized that it's essential for my well-being, for my work, for my family, for everyone around me as well, for me to practice kinder self-talk,
Mm.
kinder self-compassion, just seeing myself as a human, right? Exercising the compassion for myself that I give to my partner, that I give to the people around me. And there are specific exercises, especially in that emotional section, that are geared for self-talk, that it's like, you know, get to know yourself as if you're going on a date with someone, or as if you're making a new friend or meeting a new person. What would you ask that person? How would you treat that person? And so, yes, certainly, I would say that quite a big portion of those 18 practices within the emotional section are geared toward cultivating kindness for yourself and with yourself, spending time with yourself.
Now, when you're saying talking to yourself, who are you talking to? Which voice, or where do these voices in your mind come from? And especially if you have a voice that's very harsh because it learned the harshness as well, this is a way to get you motivated or keep you on your toes. Who do you talk to there?
That's a big question, right? Because we have different parts of ourselves and different almost tiers of ourselves. I mean, we have, and everyone has this, right? Regardless of your capacity to tune into each voice at the present moment. I think the way that I like to think about it is, if you have a triangle and you imagine on top you've got the conscious observer, right? Like the king of the castle or the queen of the castle, who is observing the biggest picture of all, standing on top of the castle looking out at, I don't know, the pastures, whatever, the land, and seeing the big picture of who you are, how you conduct yourself, all the different factors at play, all of the things that you're doing, that you want, that you've done, getting the full picture. And yet we often operate by the bottom of the triangle, which is the ego, the little toddler who's pulling on your leg trying to get attention, who's throwing tantrums because he thinks that, or she thinks that, if something's gone wrong, it's that life has done something to you personally, because it can feel that way sometimes, although that's not the case. And so I think oftentimes we get caught up in that ego voice, because that's the first one, right? That's like based on how you've trained yourself. That is the subconscious default of, hey, that person said something mean, and now we're just going to hold on to that and rehearse conflict in our head. Whereas it actually takes some effort to draw up the triangle and practice tuning into the voices that you're hearing, challenging them, and practicing being that observer and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's just ask a question about what's going on here first.
Yeah, and that's certainly a very helpful tool. And personally, I always feel like in the middle, we need to also connect to the heart, because if we are only challenging the voice from the head, it doesn't have the same compassionate impact on whatever is struggling underneath. And, that is also something that I feel your book, especially in the emotional section, helps to connect to that. And when we come back, I want to also switch gears and talk about food, because I was very happy to read that you are propagating to eat breakfast, because a lot of people say, no, no necessary to have 16 hours of no food. And I'm just a big breakfast fan. So I was happy to hear that you also want people to maybe fuel themselves as at the start of the day. So we'll talk about food and the importance of it and much more. So stay tuned with us. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.